AI gives somebody like me the ability with the high level overview to just create these things. Like last weekend, I had this idea for a Chrome extension. I went home and in 2 hours, I built it with AI. And it was just, I didn't have to memorize any Chrome syntax. I didn't have to do a lot of debugging.
Yeah.
I just have to get really good at prompting the AI.
You told me one time, I don't know if you remember, we showed up at the same table at a conference in Park City. Do you remember?
That's right. Yeah.
Right after AI was hitting the mainstream.
Yep.
And you go, John, I got to tell you, this is incredible. I think that Luminous is going to need half as much of a dev team as I once thought. You remember saying that to me?
Yep. I think it's still true. Last week on Friday, I had an extra hour or two. There's a ticket I need to be done. This is a task. It's super basic. It is just boring as hell to have to go through, and it's just a lot of copy pasting, a lot of like replicating code. I did it in an hour. That would have probably taken like 4 or 5 days. There would have been typos. There would have been issues because it was just this simple repetitive task that I would have, if I had a junior developer, I would have just given it to him to go do. And this could just pump it out instantly.
Yeah. You told me, I think at that meeting, you go, John, seriously, there was a 6-week project I did in like 1 to 3 days. There was a 6-hour project I did in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's been going on now for a year or two.
Yeah. Where I don't even know what it was like before coding.
Really? It's gotten into your workflow so much, like you can't even go back to how it was.
If you had to go back to pre-May 2023, having experienced what you've experienced the last couple of years, you wouldn't want to do it.
It'd be so hard to go back. Part of it is there's such a discussion online between programmers on like how effective it is. And it's such a controversial thing. Like if you post anything on LinkedIn about AI, it's just so many angry people.
Like attacked.
Yeah. Do you know that Tyler and I routinely meet companies whose CTO and top 1 or 2 engineers have not even touched AI?
Yeah, they don't even know anything.
Do you know why that's terrifying? Because AI is not easy to use. Like there are so many times I sat down, a project that would have taken an hour, it took me like 3 days using AI because I didn't want to settle for like what I knew. I wanted to understand like why is AI failing at this and how can I get better at using it and prompting it so that I don't have to worry about this in the future. It's kind of that trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
Where I think most people get in this trough of disillusionment and be like, oh, it's just taking me more time debugging. But they have to work through it and figure out how can I use AI effectively? Because it is an incredible tool.
Okay, welcome back to the Startup Ignition podcast. Thanks to those who have been listening and watching. I'm Tyler.
John.
And we're your hosts. And again, we're old news, but we got some new news here today. We are super excited. We have Jared Ward and Brendon Beebe with Luminous, a portfolio company of our Startup Ignition Ventures firm, and we are so excited to have our first portfolio company founders on the podcast.
Really? You were our first investment from the fund.
Yeah.
And also, we just got to say, you're one of our favorite startup teams in the entire state of Utah.
But I have a bio. I'm not sure if you guys saw the bios that I sent over. So we're going to bio you real quick here, and then we'll get into the podcast. But Jared Ward is CEO and Brendon is CTO of Luminous. And Jared, you have an e-commerce expert background. That's kind of where the idea for Luminous come. We'll dive into that a little bit. Yep. But you were previously at Qualtree, a Utah-based e-commerce company. And then you founded Luminous. And then Brendon has a rich technology background going all the way back, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years in the Utah ecosystem.
And we have a rich background with him.
With Brendon. And Brendon is a very experienced and seasoned CTO, has built a few startups at this point now, and is now diving in at Luminous. So we're super excited to have both of you here.
And you guys are the reason why
you guys are here.
You two know each other because of us.
Yes, exactly.
But before we get into any of that history and fun stories and all the founding of Luminous and the Startup Ignition Ventures investment and that whole saga, let's get into the podcast. And we always do an icebreaker. I don't know if you guys have watched any of the episodes yet, but we always do a fun little game that I use AI to come up with. And we play a sweet game for like 5 minutes just to get into the podcast mode and get loose and get ready and get going. Yeah. So if it's cool with you guys, we're going to do an icebreaker. And here's the one that we have today. we're going to play a game called Invest or Pass, okay? And we're all going to put our VC hats on here, and we're all either going to invest and pass. So you're playing too, okay? Okay, so I'm going to say the scenario of a company, a potential fake company here, and you guys are going to say invest or pass.
Is this secretly a real company?
No. Well, some of them have, germinated from real scenarios, okay? So here we go. I'm going to give you the business model, the product, the revenue models, and the traction that they have, and you're going to tell me invest or pass. So this is kind of a play off of the dating game Smash or Pass. I don't know if you've heard, but we're playing Invest or Pass, okay? So here we go. So the first one, an AI-powered procurement assistant. So the business model, it's a SaaS platform for mid-sized manufacturers, okay? The product is an AI assistant that streamlines procurement and analyzing supplier data, negotiating pricing, and automating purchase orders. The revenue model is an annual SaaS subscription and contracts with tiered pricing, okay? But their traction is 0. They have no customers and they have no ARR. Are you investing or are you passing?
Pass. 100%.
Passing.
Pass.
Passing. Why are you out passing?
What? There's no customers. Like,
You didn't go. Do the founders have background? And
I didn't do founder background.
If they have 0 revenue,
No.
does any of that matter other than their background?
Yeah, so it's just an idea. Yeah. So not investing.
The one thing I like is that they are attacking workflow, and I like workflow businesses, ones that do
it's
workflows.
B2B AI procurement
workflow.
software.
But yeah, I'm not sure. But the AI thing is, then I start wondering, okay, can they be disintermediated? Because it's AI. Somebody
Is it faux
later,
AI? Is it real AI?
Yeah.
it's not specific to a vertical either.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Next one. This one is a virtual reality travel experience, okay? The business model is direct to consumer, so it's B2C, okay? It's a B2C app. It's a VR platform offering immersive destination experiences, okay? Their revenue model, it's a freemium model, and then there's in-app purchases. So it's a B2C app, okay, in the VR space. Traction, they have 20K monthly active users, but they're pre-revenue. Are you investing or no?
Pass.
Passing on that one too.
Pass.
Passing on that one too. Why? The B2C?
Did you? That's just a bad idea. Did you?
I don't understand it.
You went to ChatGPT. You're like, list me 3 bad ideas.
And just the one thing too is 20K users. I don't know if that means registered users or active users.
Yeah, active. It was active. It was active. Yeah.
Like,
20K monthly active users.
Yeah, but what does it? It's travel related.
Yeah, it's a travel experience VR app.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that you only use travel apps when you're traveling and need it. It's not something you can be a daily active user of.
Well, this is to immerse yourself in VR.
You're really trying to
Some
sell
of the VR startups, they just totally failed. Like I've heard of one, Kumo Space.
Yeah.
It was like it raised like $100 billion or $100 million value, whatever it was. But like everything's flopped in that space. At least everything that I've
It's just
heard
really
of.
hard.
Yeah.
And B2C alone, just B2C is hard.
Yeah, the revenue can't be attributed the same like B2B. B2B, it's like recurring, it will come back. The B2C could be gone tomorrow.
And sometimes you just need lightning to strike and how to predict where lightning strikes. Right?
Okay, last one. Ready? We're doing 3 rounds. This is the last one. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can pull some money out of your guys' wallets here. Okay, here we go. This is a blockchain-based voting system.
God.
Okay. Enterprise SaaS, okay, for government and corporate clients, okay. It's a secure blockchain-powered digital voting solution for shareholder meetings and local elections, okay. Revenue model is obviously licensing and implementation fees, but also subscription SaaS. But the traction, it's in beta, but they have 3 state government contracts lined up. Are you investing or are you passing?
I would look at that one.
I don't understand the blockchain, so
Yeah.
It's just the security protocol
An
around
immutable
the voting
ledger
system.
for voting makes sense to me.
I think everything a blockchain can do, a database can do it 100 times better.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that feel that way. So real quickly, as a lesson, do a 30-second thing. Why do you think regular existing technologies, that's what people were saying, that eventually blockchain, real quickly, 30 seconds, why blockchain can be replicated by existing other technologies.
Because a blockchain is just essentially a public database that anybody can write or read to.
Yeah.
But it's just way slower. So you have to have a reason why it needs to be publicly written to. And
With this slowness is there, isn't it more secure then or no?
No, a database is going to be way more secure. It's going to be locked down. It's going to be, you can have logs, you can have an audit log, you can have good security.
But the magic for voting, whereas a public immutable ledger so that there can't be fraud in an election. That's the idea. But you think existing database technologies could do that too?
Yeah, we already do. We kind of already do it. And there's ways where we can verify your vote was in the database and it was logged correctly and counted correctly without a blockchain.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's a lot of use cases for a blockchain outside of Bitcoin and transacting cash.
Literally crypto or finance. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so we're 0 for 3.
That was really bad.
Can I tell you something interesting? Here's a fascinating interest. Entrepreneurs, so upset. Why are they not getting money from venture capitalists? Why aren't investors investing in them? But fast forward 5-10 years, they're successful. They now got money. They're now exited. They're the worst on the entrepreneur. They say no to all the other entrepreneurs. It's just so funny. When you're on the other side and you have to deploy your capital, you're being very picky. It's different, right?
It's so hard. Well, even you guys made a ton of money off Route. I remember hearing Route as an idea. I'm like, this is so dumb. Why would anybody invest in it?
Here's the thing, though.
Talk about lightning striking.
But no, the model there that existed was a really good model. The actual revenue generation model, the business model that was
shipping insurance, low utilization, It turns out, as we all know in the world, insurance is an incredible business.
Insurance is a great business model.
If you get enough premium payers and you don't have bad experiences with having to put out money, you can make a lot of money in insurance.
You have to be I feel like as an investor, you have to be really optimistic. Like when I look at ideas, I feel like I'm way too critical of everything. Like I would look at that and be like, we could replicate that in a week.
That's why we really break it, at least at Startup Ignition Ventures, into the lean startup process. Like how much validation work has gone into this, because we do invest so early. There's not a lot of financial traction or back history that we can.
But you're right, Brendan. At the end of the day, a venture investor, no matter what, the job is trying to shorten the gulf that you have to cross, that chasm, but there's always a quantum leap of faith.
Yeah,
there's a leap of faith always. You just don't want the leap of faith to be this wide. You want to shrink it down to here.
Well, that's also the founder's job, to de-risk or build that confidence as much as possible.
Should Route have been a VC-funded startup? It seems like there was just like a period of time where the CAC to LTV was incredible and they could have just been like an insanely profitable business.
Because like literally... people would pay 1% for shipping insurance, and hardly anybody making a claim. Seems like good cash flow, right?
And the model worked. They had the numbers to prove it. They had been running it, and it was like
insane.
I can't remember the percentage of people that opted in.
Are we happy we took an early exit? Are we happy we took an early exit? Yes.
So in my defense on that Icebreaker game, I used Grok for the first time. So I was leaning in on Grok there. Okay,
I like Grok. Okay.
Yeah, I actually do too. That's what I've been using it a lot more over like the last 2-3 weeks. So.
Yeah.
All right. Let's actually get into the questions and the actual agenda that we have for the podcast here. I built out a quick agenda, and I wanted to dive kind of maybe into Jared's background first a little bit here, because I feel like that's where the story of Luminous begins. And I don't know if you wanted to start on a different note or if you wanted to dive into something else.
There's so much entrepreneurial teachings and principles taught in the experiences of Brendon with us that we want to bring out.
So we could go further back. Do you want to start with Brendon?
I feel like that's the right place.
Because we met Brendon? We've met
15 years ago.
15 years ago or more.
2011.
Yeah.
I want to kick off and see if you remember the same way I do. How's that sound? Okay, so the first time I ever heard about you was reading about you getting in trouble at BYU.
Yep.
So I was a professor at BYU, read in the Daily Universe, the student newspaper, student threatened with expulsion for hacking BYU website. Okay. Is that true?
Sounds like Brendon, yeah.
And then as I read about it, and I go, this sounds like an entrepreneur. And I'm running the entrepreneurship center, right? So I said, funny, they want to expel him and I want to give him a prize. And then Tyler and I were mired in a business that wasn't going well with a offshore dev team.
Yep.
And so I said, Tyler, I actually want to go to lunch with this kid. So we invited you to Costa Vida, and that's where we first met.
Yeah.
How old was he at the time?
You were a sophomore at BYU?
Yeah,
like
2011.
Yeah.
And what were you majoring in?
Computer science.
You were a CS major,
Yeah.
but you were self-taught. you said you weren't learning that much in the CS major compared to being how self-taught you were. Is that right? The CS,
I think you learn different things. Like I think a computer science degree is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you different things, but you have to be you have to be in a work environment at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can apply
because you can't just go to, if you want to actually go out into the business world and make a difference as an engineer, you can't just understand theory. You've got to have practical skills.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what I felt is that you had self-taught yourself practical skills, not just the theory of taking classes.
Yeah. I worked probably 30 hours a week every time through school.
Yeah.
So there was,
I teach I guest teach sometimes a class in the CS program at BYU. It's CS 405, creating new ventures in the CS program.
That's a great class.
It's an amazing class. It's an awesome class. Every CS major and program I feel like should have a creating new ventures program.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's really going over a lot of the CS students' heads because they aren't implementing anything. They're not doing anything. They're not actually outside of the classes actually working or actually actively coding or building in a startup environment. So I do think that's pretty crucial.
Let's talk about where we were at with Brent. So where we were at with you.
That conversation was terrifying, by the way.
Because the one that we had?
Yeah, because John is like so, if you ever met him the first time, he's so official. He'll send you like an email being like, everything our meeting is not investor advice and blah, 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 blah.
You have to book it through Vite.
But anyway, we hit it off really well at the meeting. And the situation we were in, which was interesting. So I just wanted to congratulate you and award you as a student entrepreneur for what you did. And by the way, what you did to get into trouble, tell them what you did to get in trouble.
So I essentially monopolized the BYU registration system. There was no wait list. So they came out with the wait list because of it. But it was essentially first come, first serve. You'd log onto the website and keep refreshing until opening was there. And so I just ran a script off my desktop computer at home. It hosted a website that people could go to and register for classes. And then on repeat, it would just try every so often to get you into that class.
So it was like
just constantly pinging,
kind of sniping. Sniping.
Yeah, it was a sniping for eBay.
Sniping for like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you were pinging the BYU servers all the time.
Yeah, but you have to remember it was off my desktop computer because I didn't have money. So it was just running off my desktop computer. If I shut down my computer, the website went down.
The Office of Information Technology BYU noticed an unusual amount of pings from a certain IP address.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how they caught you.
Yeah, a third of the student body was logged into my computer.
What business were you running? Tell about the business.
Oh, I was charging, I think it was like $2,000, and you could be at the front of the line for registration. And
for any class.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would have lines of like 300 or 400 students and parents coming, their son was coming home from their mission, and they'd give me some money so they could be at the front of the line.
Yeah.
Wait, how much money did you make?
I don't remember. There was a period of like 3 to 6 months where I was actually making money, and then it got shut down really quick.
Yeah.
Well, he got in trouble. So then that's so fascinating and that's interesting. So then at this lunch though, then we told you that we had just spent $175,000 for 18 months with 4 Indian coders, right? And weren't very happy because it was probably 25 to 50% done and kind of crappy. And so that's where we were at. And so then I came up with, and here's what I remember. I go and said, well, Brendan, this has been a great lunch. Got an idea. Would you be interested in working on a project of ours? Here's the project, and do that. And then I said, well, and then you said you'd be interested. And I said, how much would you charge? And you said, would $15 an hour be too much? That's what you said. And then I don't know if you remember this. And I said, I'm not going to pay you $15 an hour. I'm going to pay you $25 an hour. Okay. Because 60 days from now, people are going to know who you are because you're working with us, and they're going to say, I'm ripping you off. And they're going to also try to steal you away.
Yeah, poach them away.
So what happened was we cut the deal, and then you and Tyler sat down for 3 weeks, kind of side by side.
Do you remember those coding nights when I'd come over to your rented house?
And in 3 weeks, Tyler telling you what we wanted, and you coding by yourself, finished the entire thing. And it was beautiful and worked the way it was. So I just want to say to our listeners,
there's a principle there.
And viewers, this is really important. And it's a cardinal principle with us. And I'm just telling you right here, right now, you're a software startup in the United States of America. Going offshore or to a dev shop is not going to lead to a good outcome. Yeah. You need to have a co-founder, engineer, and work side by side in the same office and get it done fast and get it done right.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And so that was such a good experience. And what happened there, then we started placing you in our investment company, the companies we invested in. And so that's where you two then became friends and could tell more of the story.
I don't know if
during Matchmate.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but like literally those handful of weeks that we were coding together is when I learned the majority of my technology.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like I learned
because he was the designer. He made everything look.
He's
really
got
good.
great design, UX, UI skills.
Yeah, so I would do a lot of front end stuff, but like just watching you code over your shoulder, like that literally propelled my technological skills
Really?
So much. It was awesome.
And so then I invested in a genetics technology company.
Yep.
And Tyler got a job in biz dev, and then you got one of the positions in the
Just a developer.
In developer.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I remember bringing you in because I was the CTO that they had placed there. I was like, this guy, it's so hard to work with him, and he's just like, not that he didn't know what he was doing, but he just wasn't up to the par that I was used to with Brendon, right? So I'm like, Brendon, you just need to come to this startup and basically weasel your way in.
But here's what I remember as an investor. You came in like the third position in the dev team.
Yeah,
okay?
no, I think you were.
And then what happened is you started outperforming the CTO in the second position one, and that CTO didn't like it. That you were kind of better than him. Is that how you remember it or not?
He's not going to toot his own horn.
I mean, I don't want to call. I'm not going to. I call
here's what-
arrogant being like.
But this is another. Okay, viewers and listeners. Here's a lesson again. It's very common. So if you're the business guy in a startup and you got a CTO that doesn't welcome superior talent coming in the company under him,
that's a red flag.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I would also say I'm very hard to work with as like reporting into somebody.
Okay.
Because I'm very opinionated. And I like things done my way.
But how should a CTO, let's say you got somebody in Luminous that way that was working under you right now too, that kind of, it's not arguing, but the friction of that actually produces better products. And what happened is this CTO, my understanding, my memory of, is that he was kind of squelching you and holding you down and not taking advantage for the benefit of the company of your talent. And then that left it open to the next part of your story, is that another company in which I was invested in found out about you because of me bragging about you, and they tried to poach you from that other company. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you invited me to a Mexican restaurant, said, John, you've been mentoring me all the way. Just let you know, two of your companies, one...
Oh, I forgot about that.
You remember that now?
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And you said, John, I need some advice here because I'm at one of your companies you had me go to that you're invested in, but another company you're invested in is wanting to steal me away. And what did I tell you? I was honest with you, wasn't I?
What did you say? I don't remember.
I
was probably like, go ahead.
Yeah,
go for it.
I remember saying this thing. Say, well, Brendon, I'm going to treat you like if you were one of my sons. You remember I said that? I said, so here's the deal. The CEO of the company you're at now shows up about half the time and is not really engaged. The founders at this other company are one of my favorite teams I've ever invested in, and they're all in.
I do remember that.
Remember that?
It was how it went down.
What do you think that advice I'm going to give you is then? You said, well, go to the other company then. And I said, that's the best advice.
Yep.
And then that's what you did.
Yeah,
And
that
it
was
worked
great.
out.
Yeah.
What ended up happening with the original company that you left from?
It actually
It
got
sold to
It got acquired.
It got acquired.
It got acquired, but
Yep.
here's another lesson. Well, there's so many lessons come up in our podcast. If you're an angel investor, here's what happens. So it got acquired by a company, and I'm not going to say the name of the company or any of these companies. I know them, but after it got acquired, we got no information as investors in the first company, and never ever got any reports. Never got to see a combined cap table, and to this day, I've made probably 5 attempts to find out what my holdings are, what things are going on. Never got any information.
So you just, oh wow.
Yeah, but I do think that the whole situation never amounted to much, so I didn't chase anymore.
It still exists though. The acquired companies still exist today.
Well, I think what I learned
So
at
we would have
Matchmate-
some infinitesimal piece of it.
What I learned at Matchmate, which was so like probably the education of doing Matchmate with you guys was the most helpful of my career, was the whole concept of because we had to like recap the cap table after a while because you guys had to bring me in as a co-founder. So we had to go through that whole process, and it was kind of trivial because we had no revenue. So it was like all made up anyways.
Yeah.
And that's when you first realize like, oh, cap table is just a spreadsheet with ownership percentage. And then we had to like, after we decided it wasn't going to work out, we had gotten a loan from somebody. And so that startup just moved 100% to the person that had lent us the money.
Yeah.
And so understanding and being a part of just the basics of that.
That was good education.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Everybody should go
They
through that.
should. Somebody should do a class on cap tables because I feel like I've gone through
I do.
that
What are you talking about?
well, I know you did startup ignition, but
Yeah,
It's so
no,
hard
but
to
just
apply
just a class on that. Here's what that's so interesting. When I got to BYU as a professor, I could not believe at this award-winning top business school, nobody taught cap tables. I found that out, so I started teaching cap tables, and now it's taught a lot. But it needs to be. I would meet masters of accounting students that learn about all the financial statements of the company. A cap
And have
table is
no
just
idea how
another
to do
financial
cap
statement.
tables.
They go, what's a cap table? I said, you are a masters of accounting student. And I'll tell the story. Adam Edmonds, he's very prominent now in the state of Utah. He's right now currently CEO of Entrada. And when I first met him, and he kind of calls me his entrepreneurial father, when I first met him, I go, okay. He goes, are you the guy that helps people? I'm in a pickle. He had some problems with what he was doing. And I said, okay, let's go into this conference room. First thing I need to see, show me your cap table. And he goes, what's a cap table? He goes, what's a cap table? And I said, you are a master's of accounting student. You don't know what a cap table is? That's when I discovered we got to inject more cap table. Like you're saying, when I went in 2019, this is just good stories. I went to speak at the Lean Startup Conference by Eric Ries in San Francisco. And there was a lot of corporations there as well as entrepreneurs. And I did a 90-minute class on cap tables. Standing room, only 400 people.
Wow.
And people wrote in and said it was the best presentation of the conference because it was the one that gave them the most utility.
100%.
Really interesting. And so you make a great point. So the advice to the listeners and viewers is learn about cap tables. It's just a spreadsheet, but how important is that spreadsheet?
And it's so important when you're going out to raise money that you
understand
actually
it.
understood it. That was probably what you don't remember about Schedule Snatcher is you were like, hey, I'm going to help you with this.
That's
Can
what
you
you
send me
called
a
it?
cap table, a Schedule Snatcher? Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you're like, who owns part of it? I'm like, I signed this paper with somebody who's been helping me on the business side. He has like 40%. He's like, what's in writing? And I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
And you gave a 40%.
Oh gosh.
You don't know anything.
Yeah.
You're just kind of making it up.
Yeah.
That's a good story. Okay, so going on with Brendon, so then you moved to the new company. Tell about that experience, and I'll tell you my side because it's a very important part of. I teach about this.
We
lot.
got to go fast.
Okay, go faster. Tell them about where you moved to.
It
Tell
has
them
to be
where
like
you
a
moved to.
four-parter.
Yeah.
All right, so it's ForUp. They hired me as a contractor. My methodology when I go in as a contractor is I work twice as much as I bill, and so now they think I'm like a superhuman.
Yeah.
So I worked my butt off for 2 months.
Okay, so this is ForUp
ForUp,
Golf Software Management.
Yep.
Okay.
After the 2 months, they're blown away. They said, "Hey, we need to bring you in." I talked with you, came into this ForUp. I told them I need equity. Like that was really important to me, more so than a salary.
One incredible thing too, just for everybody to learn this lesson. So there were 3 founders there, 2 business guys and a CTO.
Yeah.
The CTO himself, an incredible guy, said this company's outgrown my skill and we need somebody with more skill.
Yeah.
That is an incredible move by that guy.
Yeah.
And he's
That was
shout out, right?
Joel
And
Hopkins is
Joel
amazing.
Hopkins is amazing
Yeah.
that he does that. And look at what Joel Hopkins, by being the founding CTO, admitting that he needed somebody with more horsepower like you to come in, he became a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
That was my biggest concern coming in too, was coming into a role where you're replacing somebody else.
Yeah.
A founding CTO.
that
you read-
intimidating?
yeah. Well, how many bad stories do you read of
Yeah,
the
about
conflicts?
But that's a credit to Joel Hopkins,
Oh,
isn't it?
100%. He's just a
Can I ask you guys a question here? Yeah. How do you vet out a good startup? Because ForUp was insanely successful.
Yeah.
How did you guys know that it was?
Founder fit
Going
was
to be
high.
successful.
Founder fit. Okay, so one of the things we start, you will increase chances of a success is founder fit. You have incredible founder fit for what we're going to talk about in a second, right? Founder fit's a lot. If you don't have founder fit, everything else has to be firing at such a high level. But if you got founder fit and passion from that founder fit, you can get through a lot of problems.
Well, we were actually arguing on the ride over here about the type of founders that Startup Ignition Ventures invests into. And I think the attributes that we look for in those founders are, I think founders need to be so close to the problem that they have this really good, at least foundational part of the solution in their mind. And then they just go and validate the only guesses that they have of that solution. And then when they prove, okay, I think I know exactly what we need to build. And then they also have to keep it very frugally built. Like, I think good founders can do a lot with very little.
And let me ask you, does Evan Tashima eat, sleep, and drink golf?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is like, how close did you see them to the problem? Because I see Evan plays a lot of golf, but as far as like golf course operations.
Evan couldn't. When I met Evan and he wanted to start a golf company, he just wanted to start something in golf. Okay. And he had his first idea. The idea needed to pivot 7 times to the winning business model, which is an important part of a startup.
Right.
Well, I don't think Evan was close to the problem as much as he was passionate about the problem.
Okay.
Right. So like he wanted to be in the golf industry. And so he was willing to go and talk to 200 golf courses
he knew
and validate
golf shops, he knew golf pros, and he knew that they had these
He
needs.
had access to that validation process, right?
Well, Evan's freaking stubborn. At least it seems like.
Come blank or high water, he was going to make something in golf work.
Well, they pivoted like 7 times before they actually
in
clung
5
to
months,
what they
7
built.
times, and he'll tell you. We tell his story a lot. Okay, so anyway, you went to there. You went to there to move it along, Brendan. Here's what happened. You went to ForUp, and that happened, and then they brought you on full time, and we complimented Joel Hopkins. But also, I want you to know what happened to me. 30 days after you took the full time position, I ran in to the founders, and I said, "How's it going?" And they go, "John, Brendon in 30 days has completely turned around our company in the tech arena. He's incredible, and we are on such a good
Jared's
trajectory."
laughing. Jared is laughing right now. Why are you laughing, Jared?
We'll get to
it's just an amazing, and that's what you need at a startup is somebody who the business guys feel that way about and they're tech guys.
Especially in a highly technical process. So ForUp was a point of sale, ERP.
Yeah.
Luminous is highly technical. I just want to say to people, you have to have a tech co-founder. And you have to have
How much did we preach that to you?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are the reason why. This is, and we would have failed without Brendan.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have a tech. If you're building a complex system, you have to have one. I don't care how smart or semi-technical you are.
Right now, Brendan versus offshore team or dev shop.
Brendan, of course.
What I mean, would you even have existed if you tried to do it with a dev shop or offshore?
Well, there's some nuance there, like because
without having
no,
without having the quasi co-founder or co-founder.
No, 100% no.
Okay, that's the story. Okay, Brendan, tell the rest of your. I won't interrupt you more. Tell the rest of your story.
Well, I have so much to say. The part you don't know is it was probably about June or July. I was leaving on vacation. I'd already planned one. I was going to be gone for like 2 or 3 weeks. I got an email from Joel Rhaegar, and it was like, "Brendan, you're letting us down as CTO. Here's all these reasons. You're not performing really well. You need to own these problems." That was probably the best email I ever got, because I think up until that point, I was a good developer, and it was what makes a good CTO. I don't think I had really
understood.
Yeah, like in the first month, it's easy. You implement Jira and some processes, and it's like people are like, "Oh, magic." But that email after 4 or 5 months was like, "Brendan, you're the CTO. You have to own these problems. I can't take care of this anymore. You need to figure out why these keep happening." And
what was it like? Managerial? Was it like leadership?
There are 3 main bugs. It was, hey, we have floating payments, double charges, and invoices keep getting replicated.
Yeah,
like it's crazy. I remember that.
Yeah,
but I came back from my May vacation. I was like, okay, as the CTO, my most important responsibility is to take care of the hardest problems, and nobody else is going to take care of it. I need to solve them.
And you need to own it.
Exactly. 100%.
Ownership was kind of the summary of that.
Completely.
Yeah.
And so how did it go for it?
And then it went really well. From the outside, it looks, awesome. You guys worked for 7 years and then got acquired. It was incredibly slow growth.
Yeah.
We had $800,000 of ARR every year for like 5 years, which is depressingly slow.
Yeah. But the slow growth also meant you guys kept a ton of equity.
Yes. We had 0 dilution. We had 0 rounds of funding after the initial investment, which was amazing.
How was that first investor?
You did really well. So then when we got acquired, all the employees that had stock did really, really well.
Well, so now at Luminous, and I'm jumping ahead in the timeline a little bit here so we can go backwards. Now, having raised the round that you guys just raised, a multi-million-dollar round at a pretty high valuation.
Is that public now?
Is that public?
I haven't announced it, but I could if I wanted to.
It's okay.
Fresh news. But anyways,
crazy.
But anyways, the difference there, like what are you feeling now versus what you felt back at ForUp at this really slow slow building like machine versus what Luminous is
when
today?
I came into Luminous, it was right after they had raised like $3 million or something. And I thought Jared and the other person that was there at the time, they had this idea of like, let's go hire the very best. Let's spend a ton of money. And I didn't have a lot of experience. I was like, maybe we did things wrong at ForUp. Maybe we could have gone faster at ForUp. And all that happened is we spent a lot of money really fast and didn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was like, no, I'm going back to what I know. We pulled back spending at Luminous. So our runway was like 2 or 3 years. We had just the fewest amount of developers we could sustain on until we could figure out what we were trying to do.
So you kind of went back to the basics of ForUp.
Exactly.
Anyways.
Remember, lean startup principles, which we all believe in, feels unsexy and slow at first, because you got to remember it's science, the science of entrepreneurship. If you're a scientist trying to develop something, the classic science story, it's months and years of boring testing and work in a lab. And then you announce this incredible breakthrough and great 100%. Things, right? Mm-hmm. That's exactly what startups are, there are an experiment lab. Your first product is not the widget you're trying to make. It's the first product is a viable business model. When you figure out the viable business model through this experimentation, then you announce, we've got a great business model. Let's go. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's why you felt that way. But the slowness at first feels slow only because you're experimenting and figuring things out.
Yeah.
It's not the time to press on the accelerator yet.
What are you going to say, Jared?
We suffered from premature scaling. I feel like every startup suffers from it to some degree, but we 100% did. So Luminous was just me in an outsourced team. I was self-funding it. I was CEO of Qualtree, which is like a modern omni-channel brand. Yeah. It was local here.
Are we segueing now?
Yeah, segue to Jared.
So Jared, let's give a little bit how you got into entrepreneurship and how when we found you that you're this young guy that you went in to help a company with 100 people and you helped them so much they made you the CEO. Right? Yeah. Tell that story a little bit.
So my background, I dropped out of college, just like every other entrepreneur. So I served a mission in Hong Kong, so I spoke Chinese, Cantonese, and Mandarin, and I had no clue what I was supposed to do with my career. All I saw was like I was going to school every day, taking like Chinese classes, like not learning anything. And then I saw like all of my colleagues, they were going to the supply chain program and they were getting out, making like $52,000 at Lenovo and hating their life.
Yeah.
So one day I was just like, I'm out. And I just bounced and I started what I knew at the time, which was I just started an e-commerce shop. So it was an Etsy shop in my unfinished basement where I figured out how to build baby gates and like hand bin barn door hardware. And I sold on Etsy. That was my job for a couple of years. So for the first part of my career, it was e-commerce and supply chain operations. That's what it was. So eventually I found my way back in Utah in about, 2017, 2018. I worked for a Chinese company, madeinchina.com. And I just helped a bunch of e-commerce companies in the area do supply chain operations. So I would source factories, I would help them get better costs, I'd streamline that process, and I'd get products in for them. Eventually, I went to a company called Qualtree. So Qualtree was one of my customers that I was helping source products for. I was helping them save a bunch of money on their cutting boards because they did they purchased massive amounts of cutting boards. So I came to them knowing that I wanted to build Luminous because I had already saw the gap in the market running my own e-commerce stores and doing supply chain for all these e-commerce companies in Utah. And so I already knew, I was like, okay, there's a gap here. I don't know exactly what it is, but I went to Qualtree and my proposition was just like, just bring me on full time. I'll be your director of supply chain. I'm going to build this product. You can use it for free. Bring me on. I'll save you a ton of money, like way more than my salary. So they bring me on. I crushed it. It's similar to how you talk about like you just implement Jira and you just do a bug fix protocol and you're a hero. It's like same thing. It's like you just implement basic supply chain process and then IMS, inventory management system, and oh wow, you're magic. So yeah, at that time, what I didn't plan for, I went to Qualtree, implemented. I started building Luminous, and it was the best because I already had the e-commerce experience, and I was at the company where, oh my God, it was perfect. Like I could just deploy it, test it, deploy, test.
Yeah.
Every day we were doing something. It was amazing. So the first product I built was an inventory management system, purchase order system. So we just managed the purchasing and the sourcing and the receiving of goods. That's where Luminous started. So things were going really well. At Qualtree, the CEO left. And what I didn't plan for was the board of directors picked me as the CEO. And
you were just a consultant.
No, I was.
You were an employee.
You were joined as an employee.
I was an employee. I came on. I was building Luminous. I told them I'm building Luminous. You guys get to use it for free. I'm going to source a bunch. Anyways, the CEO leaves, and they pick me to be CEO. And what I told them, what I told them, I was like, yes, that's fine. But I gave them, you'd be proud of me. I gave them a letter that they had to sign that like the IP of Luminous
is yours,
is mine. You can't go after it.
Yes.
And so they signed that, and I said, okay, all right, let's do this.
Let's go. Yeah.
So I was CEO of they hover between $15 and $20 million in revenue. Omni-channel, super complex. They did manufacturing in-house. It was just like the perfect testing ground. And yeah, I built Luminous for like a year and a half, and I just self-funded it. Once I felt like it got to a certain point, then I sold 5 customers. There were 5 beta customers for so long.
Was Qualtree paying you, or were you giving it to them for free while you were?
For free, 100% free. Eventually, they paid me before.
Eventually, they paid, but then you sold 4 or 5 other paying customers.
Yes, just in the general vicinity. I just networked around and like MF9. They're still a customer actually. They're just down the road. So sold 5 customers. Then there were 2 people in my orbit at that time.
Yes.
That became, and this starts the premature scaling issue, which this is a warning for everybody. And cap table issues, so many issues. I wish I had gone to Startup Ignition, the boot camp. So there were 2 people in my orbit at that time. Fine people, but actually there are multiple people in my orbit at the time. And so I had sold 5 customers. I had a core product. Everybody was paying. It was self-funded. We were at like 150K in ARR. We were profitable at that point. Of course, it was just me and like an outsourced dev team. So one of these people, he eventually became my co-founder. He helped me fundraise, which that was good. Yeah, that was awesome. There was somebody else who was an operations person, just like me. It turns out it was a little bit redundant. Yeah, good guy, but
that's a big lesson. Founding teams need to be diverse. You don't want clones of each other. Yes.
That was a bit redundant. So we had 3 non-technical people, 2 people that weren't involved in the development of the core product.
At that time, though, why did you feel like you needed to invite them into the hen house? Why did you invite them?
Similar to Brendan, like I overgive.
Yeah, but you also I
want people to win.
A scalable venture cannot be done by a lone wolf entrepreneur. You need a
so you recognize the need for a team,
right? But I was just mistaken on what was actually
you weren't
needed.
trained. Yeah. Bottom line is, just like you learn new things, all younger people that want to get into entrepreneurship are going to be ignorant. That's not a bad word. Ignorant means you haven't received knowledge yet. And you just hadn't received the knowledge. But once you get these, you guys are incredibly intelligent people, both of you. Once you've gotten some of these knowledge and start understanding patterns and how this all works, you guys have been incredible, which is later part of the story.
We wouldn't have, we would not be here if it weren't for us. I'm so glad we fundraised because we got John Richards as an advisor, which eventually led to like a lot. I mean, obviously you didn't pull any strings or anything, but like your advice led to a lot of things that helped us get to where we are right now.
So after bringing you 3 co-founders, this is getting close to when we met you then?
Yeah. Yes. How did that happen? How did you
So I met you through Mike Snow. You came through my network.
We just came from a meeting with Mike Snow.
Just had lunch with Mike Snow.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. So you came from my network.
That was our lunch.
But those 2 co-founders, we got together. We sort of like formed a team, fundraised, and we ended up raising about between 2.1 and $2.7 million. It was a pre-seed round. We 100% did premature scaling. It should have just kept being me, and I needed to find a technical co-founder, but things got a little bit out of hand for about a year. Yeah. And we were able to reel it back in.
You got to tell them what year this was. This was 2021.
2021.
And that was the frothiest time in venture. So you guys got caught up in that.
So we had $2.7 million, and I have these 2 co-founders who, it's just kind of similar to what Brendan's saying, like, oh, well, I guess we need to spend. We need to have burn because we got to grow. And I was just kind of like the quiet person in the corner, just workhorse. I was doing everything. And I don't know.
Do you know what we do now? Like when I remember back when we met you and became part of it, we kind of kicked off that investment round, right? For you. But what we should have done was had you three all come to Startup Ignition sooner than we even had you come. We had you come later. Right now, when we meet companies, it turns out really well while we're doing due diligence and thinking about the investment that they come to the boot camp.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like a mini YC?
Yeah, it in a lot of ways, but it's more, YC is trying to get people to get a product so they can do a demo day and pitch to investors. We're saying
more practical.
Yeah, we're a little bit more practical and saying you got to figure your business model out.
Yes.
Having a product without a business model is not fun.
Yeah.
So
So I would put the first year and a half of Luminous post fundraising is learning all these mistakes. And luckily I had an advisor and multiple good
Well,
investors.
the problem is that you could have done that without the money. Most likely, right?
And so what happened was then you did come though and start getting much more advice and realizing how valuable advice was.
Yeah.
Well, and so first off, they were like, you guys did stop us and you shook me and you're like, you guys need a CTO. You're dumb. Like if you think you can do this, like none of you are technical.
Yeah.
You need a CTO. So that's when you introduced us.
Yes.
And then we had a lunch.
And the funny thing is we gave you the golden, CTO in the barn, right? We said, we're going to give Luminous the best.
It was perfect. It was perfect timing. It's such perfect timing. ForUp had just exited.
Yeah.
Everybody, PE was how much shit can I talk? PE had come in to ForUp. Everybody was hating their life after PE had come in.
Yeah.
Brendon was kind of like, oh my God, like he was ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And luckily,
so many lessons we could talk about on that, right? Oh my gosh.
But basically, like there is perfect timing. Perfect timing. It'll be one of those things that we look back on. It's like, wow, that was incredible.
But we handpicked. You said we got to find you I call it quasi tech co-founder because he wasn't coming in with you three co-founders. You're the primary founder, and then you had two co-founders. And so I said, okay, so I use that word quasi CTO co-founder. We got to find you that. And then we just decided, and we said, Tyler, do you think we should is Jared worthy of Brendon?
Well, I remember talking to you, and I was a little bit nervous because I was like, I don't know if he wants to leave the ForUp situation yet. And then you were super open to it.
I don't know, you sold them pretty hard.
Yeah. But I was really excited about what you guys had cooked up.
But also, again, that's part of this perfect storm that you're talking about. One of the storms coming in that made it a combination of perfect storms was that the buyer of ForUp, and I'm not going to name who it is, made massive mistakes in that post-acquisition for one of the greatest companies in Utah. And if you want to ruin a good company post-acquisition, they were doing it.
Yeah.
And then we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's sad, right? Yeah.
So you guys had sold Luminous, and what's so great about Brendon coming over to Luminous is because it's kind of ForUp was this segment. It's like very focused. It's a point of sale / like ERP-ish. It's Luminous is the same concept, just with massive TAM. So Brendon, I think the reason why it worked out was because he's highly confident that if I'm paired with the right founder, we can get this to an exit. It's just a matter of a big
also,
TAM.
If I'm mentoring Brendon and treating him like a son, I'd say, Brendon, you got in late on ForUp and got a nice little percentage, and it made you great money that helped change your life, right?
Right.
But if you want to have money where you're permanently financially independent, you have to actually be a co-founder.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is your chance to be a co-founder and basically join Evan Tashima in the first year.
Right.
Does that make sense? And that's what you're
Well, we had that chat. Do you remember?
Yeah.
You were like, I was like, how should I use this money? How should I invest it? And you're like, you should go all in on yourself. And I'm like, all right.
And that's being a founder.
Yeah.
So I jumped over my pay cut in like half of what it was at ForUp.
Yeah. Because you didn't get enough to never have to work again.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
You're close.
Yeah.
Okay. But not truly, I'm going to go sit on a beach forever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've made some great investment, by the way. I'm really impressed with what you've done, and you've taken my advice and expanded it and done great things. But you still, if you really want to go to the next level, you need to be a founder.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So to sum it up, we fundraised. There was a year and a half premature scaling, which I thought we need a head of implementation, like let's hire the best engineers. It just went burn, and then we caught it, addressed all those issues, dust settled, and it's me and Brendon. Yeah. that's the team, and that's what I needed from the beginning. I needed a technical co-founder. So I mean, we went back to the.
So one of the lessons for everybody, Jared, is this a true statement for all the viewers and listeners? You would basically say this: you could have avoided that year and a half and the squandering of capital and time,
and the equity on the cap table
by following lean startup principles more consistently.
That's what we ended up doing. So the dust settled.
But you would have loved a year and a half ago to know you could have avoided that. Yeah.
Yes. And so we were left there, like we took burn down to nothing. It was just him and I. We were a lot more frugal, and it's just like, okay, what are we doing? Who are we? And we just did that for a year.
And we were meeting with you. We went to breakfast and restaurants, and we helped you think about that, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So then how did you get out of that period? Did customers just start coming?
We went back to what I was doing at Qualtree, which is just build, iterate, talk, like.
And a big part of it, and I feel like a startup is mostly this, is like just organizing the chaos. Like I think for a while it was like, let's bury our heads in the sand and pretend there's no competition. Finally, we were just like, we have a spreadsheet. It's 200 lines long of the competition.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you what happened a little bit in academically. What happened? We wanted to be your only investor, but other people heard about you and got excited because we were excited, and then they started jumping in, and you wanted to have some more name brand investors too, and we introduced you to some, and then you started getting too much money. And I'm going to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. The nefarious problem of too much money too fast in a startup is before you have figured out your business model, if you get too much money, the only thing you can do is prematurely scale.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be what happens. And so what people need to remember, like, let me ask you this question. Raising over $2 million, was it the end of all your problems, or did it create problems?
It created problems.
Yeah. That's what entrepreneurs don't understand. And you can fix most of the problems you need to fix to be ready to use money more efficiently without money.
Yeah. I want to go back to Brendan's point though here.
Well, Brendon, he asked a pivotal question during that time when dust is settled. It's just him and I. What are we doing? He asked like a really pivotal question, which was, he was just like, why aren't we just reselling Dynamics 365? So
what is that?
So, or why aren't we just reselling NetSuite? So there's big ERPs in the market, and like every question we'd run into, we'd research, and there's been 100 people who have built these systems 100 different ways. And so it was such a hard question. We had to swallow our pride. But answering that question really led us to our why and the success that we're having now.
So right now, say Luminous Solutions, the problem solution.
And the why.
What is your why and the problem solution? Tell us.
No, honestly, it's modern commerce. There's modern commerce, which is a mix of retail and D2C.
Omnichannel.
Right, but it's specifically a mix of retail, wholesale, direct to consumer, wholesale, retail, and then also direct to consumer. Operating that type of brand, it gets really complex real fast, and you have to do it very lean. Luminous is purpose built for modern commerce. The problems that you run into.
So is that what you recognized when you sat down and had that real moment with yourselves and said, what are we doing? What are we building?
It was
Why
like
do
a
we
year-long discussion.
Yeah.
Who's your ideal customer profile so all the listeners and viewers can find you more customers? Who's your ICP?
So somebody who's hit a company who's hit product market fit. So typically between $5 and $150 million in revenue. They have to be omni-channel. So what does that mean? It's direct consumer, which is Shopify, Amazon, specialty wholesale, and it needs to be greater than 20% of your entire business. Needs to be gone through wholesale, big box retail or EDI. That is the mix. And typically a complex purchasing flow. What does that mean? Well, do you purchase raw materials that then get sent to a co-manufacturer?
Can you share a customer name that just loves you and you're doing great for them? What's one of your,
this is a great example.
What's one of your marquee customer you'd love to tell the world about?
Fathead. They're a super well-known brand.
Wait, which one's that one? The ones that you put the blow-ups on the wall, the stickers, the decals?
We're just migrating them off of NetSuite right now. They're greater than $5 million. I can't say the revenue.
Oracle NetSuite is you beat them for this ideal customer profile every time.
And it's so Fathead needed their modern commerce. Oh my God, they sell across like 15 different channels, a mix of D2C and retail.
Yeah.
And so what they need, NetSuite becomes this thing that has to intake a bunch of different data, translate it, and then push it on, which it doesn't do that well. Luminous does. We're a much more modern system. So we can do what NetSuite does for this brand at a third of the cost.
So is your advice to all the founders out there is that you have those hard conversations earlier?
100%.
And realize and determine together what you are doing, what you are building, what's our real problem solution, what is our business model?
You have to get real.
Yeah.
Like that's what he did.
Somebody
so well.
has to be the skeptic that's like comes in and says, we're just copying NetSuite. Let's resell it.
Yeah.
And
can't be a me too.
Yeah. And we had really hard conversations over a course of 2+ years.
Yeah.
Of like, what are we doing and why are we doing this?
That's a little bit like, I like to say my mentoring and helping is a little bit tough love. Like I make you address real questions, right? And real things. And it's because these patterns and these principles are correct. And if you're not following the right patterns and principles, you're not going to succeed. And your goal is to get to the finish line, right? And be successful. Right. So you've got to follow them. And it's great that you guys, it's exciting. I have a question for Brendon, if I can.
It's your podcast.
Jared, great story. So Brendon, like moving over here to Luminous, you love being challenged and overcoming obstacles and doing cool tech things and, doing stuff. What's one thing that Luminous, like you was a challenge and you figured out and solved for Jared? I know it's putting you on the spot. What's a thought? I'm curious.
So for me, what was just fun from the get-go is ForUp got to a place where I was no longer building. It was more of just like managing people and high-level things. The switch from going from that to you're the only one building is such a big gap. But my biggest fear has always been that I'm going to be 40 or 50 and I haven't built anything in 10 to 15 years and I'm falling behind. And so being able to come in and be like, now I'm on the ground floor and I'm building something again, I love. And the next thing has been like the realization that we're in a market where everything's already kind of been built and we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can look at all the competition and choose the solutions we think has implemented it best for this part and bring it down and implement it exactly like that. Yeah. And we don't have to like recreate anything. It's more of our eyes are open. We're looking around. We're just kind of grabbing what, sounds interesting.
And making a system for modern commerce that's affordable and efficient and works. And some of the old dinosaur legacy products in the market, you're just beating them. You're beating them in the field of competition every day.
Right.
What's interesting is we've actually come around to sort of the original thesis, but it's so much more informed. Like we understand everything behind it.
Let's ask another question, Brendon, if I can, because I think it'll be interesting for everybody. We also, Tyler and I rely on you a lot of times to filter and give us your opinion on tech matters. So let's ask this question. I count May of 2023 as kind of when AI hit the world in the public mainstream. And, it was exciting when I ran into you the next few months. How has AI impacted your role as a true CTO builder creator? And you're also skeptical. You also don't give praise easily to things, right? Mm-hmm. I would say that about you, right?
Yeah. Like so blockchain.
Yeah. So how has AI impacted your ability to do what you do?
It is incredible. One, especially when you've been cold in tech for so long, the syntax isn't on your fingertips. You have to kind of think about things and how to implement it. AI gives somebody like me the ability with the high level of overview to just create these things, whether it's a extension for Chrome. Like last weekend, I had this idea for a Chrome extension. I went home and in 2 hours, I built it with AI and it was just, I didn't have to memorize any Chrome syntax. I didn't have to do a lot of debugging.
Yeah.
I just have to get really good at prompting the AI.
The normal process is looking up that syntax or looking up the way that things are supposed to be put together, and AI just does that.
I'm really good at reading code and modifying code.
So I'd call you a 10x coder. You're saying that a 10x coder can employ AI and have much less need for having a bunch of junior coders running around. You told me one time, I don't know if you remember, we showed up at the same table at a conference in Park City. Do you remember?
That's right. Yeah.
Right after AI was hitting the mainstream. Yep. And you go, John, I got to tell you, this is incredible. I think that Luminous is going to need half as much of a dev team as I once thought. Is that?
Are you still thinking
do you remember
that
saying
way?
that? Do you remember saying that to me?
Yep. I think it's still true. And
Explain that to everybody.
So last week on Friday, I had an extra hour or two. There's a ticket I need to be done. This is a task. It's super basic. It is just boring as hell to have to go through, and it's just a lot of copy pasting, a lot of like replicating code. I did it in an hour. That would have probably taken like 4 or 5 days. There would have been typos. There would have been issues because it was just this simple repetitive task that I would have, if I had a junior developer, I would have just given it to him to go do. And this could just pump it out instantly.
Yeah. You told me, I think at that meeting, you go, John, seriously, there was a 6-week project I did in like 1 to 3 days. There was a 6-hour project I did in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's been going on now for a year or two.
Yeah. Where I don't even know what it was like before coding.
Really? It's gotten into your workflow so much, like you can't even go back to how it was.
If you had to go back to pre-May 2023, having experienced what you've experienced the last couple of years, you wouldn't want to do it.
It'd be so hard to go back. So part of it is there's such a discussion online between programmers on like how effective it is, and it's such a controversial thing. Like if you post anything on LinkedIn about AI, it's just so many angry people.
Like attacked.
Do you know that Tyler and I routinely meet companies whose CTO and top 1 or 2 engineers have not even touched AI?
Yeah, they don't even know anything.
Do you know why that's terrifying? Because AI is not easy to use. Like there are so many times I sat down, a project that would have taken an hour, it took me like 3 days using AI because I didn't want to settle for like what I knew. I wanted to understand like, why is AI failing at this and how can I get better at using it and prompting it so that I don't have to worry about this in the future? It's kind of that trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
Where I think most people get into this trough of disillusionment and being like, oh, it's just taking me more time debugging. But they have to work through it and figure out how can I use AI effectively? Because it is an incredible tool.
So what I've been explaining to people that's resonating with them lately, I just say the simple statement, you understand, it's the difference between a screwdriver and a power drill to put screws in the wall, right? That's why it's doing mundane tasks that you would have to do. And if you had to do it with a hand screwdriver, your hand's going to get tired and it's going to take a lot longer versus having a power drill. It's not going to be this magical thing that is going to completely do everything for you.
Yeah.
It's a tool that helps you do what you still need to do, but way faster and more accurate.
Well, did you see that? It's in the, what's that tool called? Cursor. Yeah, Cursor is like the fastest company to whatever in
hit
revenue.
100 million.
100 million.
If they hit 100 million
ever.
revenue in 6 months or something.
Yeah, crazy.
What is their offering again?
It's the IDE. It's a programming tool for
Cursor.
It programs for you.
Oh, wow.
Tyler built an iOS app like in 10 minutes or something with Cursor.
Yeah, and I'm not that technical, so
No, that's what I built the extension with last weekend.
was with Cursor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cursor's amazing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a ton of AI tools. So yeah, it's obviously impacting everything, and all the way down to the little teams, all the way up to the massive companies,
How
or
we
at least
doing
it should
on
be.
time here? How we doing on
We're
time?
getting pretty close. So
Okay.
is there anything else we want to talk about or cover before we wrap up the episode? Is there anything you guys have been itching to talk about or want the viewers?
I think we're going to have them back in a little while. So the bottom line is Luminous Solutions, an incredible company. This is the founders. They're doing incredible. And we kind of pre-announced it. No details here that you just closed a major round.
Yep.
Yeah.
At a highly increased valuation.
$3 million. So we raised about $3 million, give or take, at a $28 million post money
That's
valuation.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
So
awesome.
onward and upward. Is there anything else you guys want to talk? Any other lessons that we could part the audience with today?
Could be so many.
What's the number one thing? If you think about your time since being at Luminous, like what's the number one tip, advice for actual
Somebody
builders
comes and says,
right now?
I want to start a software company. I'm thinking of doing this. What would you tell me?
I don't even want to frame it like that. It's
Yeah.
just like, what is the number one thing?
You need the optimism of Jared and the founding team. You need maybe you need the skeptic like me, but more importantly,
You need optimism.
yeah, Jared's like, we're gonna 3x next year. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay,
But we did it.
We did it. So basically, in other words, you're saying if the glass it's either half full or half empty, right?
You need somebody on the team who's just, because starting a startup sucks.
Yeah.
Even the second time, maybe the third time, it probably always sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, but are you guys still having fun? Are you enjoying it?
Oh,
Yes.
it's the best.
You know what? I just read Alex Bean from Divi just posted a comment and I can't remember what he was commenting on LinkedIn, and I read it, and he said something. He goes, yeah, it's more fun climbing up the hill than getting to the other side.
Oh,
and it's so interesting, isn't it? So many people get dismayed, like getting to the summit and being on the other side where you've got money from an exit and stuff is not nearly as fun as actually climbing up the hill.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating, isn't it?
The years at ForUp where we were struggling and growing slow, you look back and it is the best years of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Is that interesting?
You get to the top and it is the most least fulfilling part of your everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to shut it down. Wrap us up, Tyler.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming on. We really appreciate it. Check them out. Check out Luminous. We're Startup Ignition. We're going to wrap things up. We're literally getting pushed out of the room right now.
Subscribe, follow.
Join Luminous.com.
Yeah. Subscribe, follow, leave a comment. We love to chat to everybody. Thank you so much. We're going to sign off.